Do you think only humans create rules inside a relationship? Maybe not, because your dog may be living by a set of quiet rules too. They do not say them out loud. They do not explain them to you. But they still respond every single day to whether those rules are being honored or broken. And what makes this so important is that those rules are usually not complicated at all. They live in small things: the way you react, the way you touch them, the way you listen, the way you guide them, the way the world feels when you are part of it. That is why this matters more than most people realize. If those unspoken rules are respected, your dog often becomes softer, calmer, and easier to trust. If they are broken again and again, many dogs become more tense, more uncertain, and less able to feel safe in the relationship. In this video, we are going to look at 6 of the most important unspoken rules many dogs quietly expect you to understand. This video is not about pretending dogs secretly write rulebooks for humans. It is about something more real than that. These unspoken rules are better understood as basic expectations of safety, clarity, and respect. They are the conditions many dogs rely on to know when they can relax, when they need to stay alert, and whether the person beside them feels trustworthy. Through 6 key ideas, we will explore why dogs need a life that feels consistent enough to read, why they hope you will notice the early signals before they have to react more strongly, why physical space is something they expect you to respect, why your emotional state can change the feeling of an entire home, why safety has to come before obedience, and why, at the deepest level, dogs need you to be a steady source of direction rather than another thing they have to fear. 1. Let your daily life stay clear enough that your dog does not have to keep guessing the rules. This may be the quietest rule of all, but it sits underneath so many of the others. Your dog does not need every day to look exactly the same. They do not need a life with no surprises, no change, and no flexibility, but they do need enough structure to understand what kind of world they are living in with you. What usually happens in the morning, what the tone of the house feels like, what behaviors are allowed, what gets ignored, what gets rewarded, what gets corrected. When those things stay reasonably clear, dogs can relax into life much more easily. They do not have to keep scanning for what version of the world they woke up into today. They can settle because enough of the pattern makes sense. But when daily life becomes too inconsistent, that sense of ease starts to disappear. One day the couch is fine, and the next day it leads to scolding. One day jumping up gets laughter, and the next day it gets frustration. One week the routine is predictable, and the next everything shifts without warning. Meals move, walks move, reactions change, the rules blur. And little by little, the dog is left doing more emotional work than most people realize. Not because they are stubborn, not because they are trying to challenge you, because uncertainty keeps the body alert. When a dog cannot tell what is coming, what is allowed, or how you are likely to respond, they often become more watchful, more hesitant, or more restless. Some dogs get clingier, some get pushier. Some seem to test limits more often, not because they want conflict, but because they are trying to find solid ground in a world that keeps shifting. That is what people often miss. Predictability is not about control for its own sake. It is about nervous system relief. A life that feels readable is easier to trust. A life that keeps changing shape without warning is harder to settle inside. So one of the deepest unspoken rules many dogs seem to live by is very simple. Do not make me guess everything all the time. Give me enough clarity that I can stop preparing for confusion and start feeling safe inside the life we share. 2. Listen while your dog is still trying to speak softly. Most dogs do not begin with a growl. They begin with something much quieter. A head turn, a lip lick, a pause, eyes looking away, a body that stiffens for a second, a dog that slows down, shifts position, or leans just slightly out of the interaction. These signals are easy to miss because they are not dramatic, but that is exactly the point. They are often the earliest, politest way a dog tries to say, "I am not comfortable with this." And one of the most important unspoken rules many dogs seem to expect from us is simple. Please do not wait until I have to say it louder. That rule matters because dogs often escalate only when softer communication has failed. They do not always jump straight to snapping, barking, or pulling away hard. Many try smaller signals first. They test whether subtlety works. They give the relationship a chance to stay calm. So when those early signs are ignored, something important happens. The dog is not only left in the same uncomfortable moment, they also begin to learn that gentle communication does not change anything. That looking away did not help. That freezing did not help. That moving slightly back did not help. And once a dog learns that soft signals are useless, they may stop using them for a while and move to bigger reactions instead. That is why this rule is really about trust. Your dog does not need you to read every signal perfectly, but they do need to feel that when they try to communicate discomfort in a small way, it matters to you, that you notice, that you slow down, that you give them room before the moment becomes too heavy for them to carry politely. Because in many relationships, the difference between a dog who feels heard and a dog who feels cornered begins right here, in the tiny moments most people overlook. So if your dog turns away, goes still, licks their lips, shifts their weight, or quietly withdraws from the interaction, do not brush it off just because it is subtle. Sometimes the softest signals are the most important ones to respect. 3. If your dog needs space, do not turn closeness into an obligation. This rule is more specific than simply noticing early signals. It is about what you do next. There are moments when a dog does not want to be hugged, does not want to be leaned over, does not want to keep being petted, or simply needs to step away and regulate themselves for a moment. And in those moments, many dogs are quietly asking for the same thing. Let me leave without making this harder. That matters because people often confuse affection with access. They assume that love means continued closeness, more touching, more holding, more insisting. But for many dogs, safety is not measured by how long they stay in contact with you. It is measured by whether they are allowed to move away without pressure, guilt, or pursuit. A dog who turns their head, shifts away, steps back, slips out from under your hand, or gets up and leaves is not always rejecting you. Sometimes they are just protecting their own comfort before it turns into stress. And if you keep following, keep reaching, keep calling them back into the interaction, the message they receive is not love. It is that their boundary does not count. That is where closeness starts to become heavy. Because forced affection does not feel affectionate to the one being forced. It feels like being held inside a moment that has already become too much. And over time, dogs notice that pattern. They learn whether distance is allowed in this relationship, whether no can remain soft, whether moving away will be respected the first time, or whether they will have to say it more clearly. This is why one of the quietest rules many dogs seem to live by is so simple and so important. If I step away, let that mean something. Do not turn my need for space into a test of loyalty. Do not treat my boundary like a problem to overcome. Because a relationship feels safest not when a dog is always close, but when they know they are free to leave and still be trusted, still be loved, and still be left in peace. 4. Do not let your emotional state turn the whole house into something your dog has to read with caution. This rule is different from structure. A home can have regular meals, familiar routines, and clear rules, and still feel hard for a dog to relax in if the emotional tone keeps changing in ways they cannot predict. Your dog does not only live inside your schedule, they live inside your atmosphere. They notice when your voice sounds softer than usual or sharper than it did yesterday. They notice when your hands feel patient one day and rush the next. They notice when your footsteps are calm and when they carry pressure before anything has even happened. They notice when you call them with warmth and when you call them with irritation already sitting underneath the words. And over time, that matters more than people realize. Because dogs are constantly reading not just what you do, but how you do it. The pace of your movement, the tension in your body, the weight in your silence, the difference between a room that feels settled and a room that feels like it is bracing for something. That is why some dogs stay on edge, even in homes that look completely normal from the outside. The routine may be fine, the rules may be mostly clear, but if the emotional weather keeps shifting without warning, the dog still ends up having to scan the room to figure out what kind of version of you is present today. And that can be exhausting. This does not mean you have to be cheerful all the time. No one can live that way. The deeper point is simpler than that. Your dog needs your feelings to be readable enough that they do not have to keep preparing for a sudden change in tone, touch, or energy. Because when your mood becomes too unpredictable, the whole home becomes harder to trust. So one of the quiet rules many dogs seem to rely on is this: do not make me keep guessing whether the room is safe based on what your body's carrying today. Let your presence feel steady enough that I can exhale inside it. 5. Before you ask your dog to do better, help them feel safer first. This may be one of the most important rules of all because it shapes everything that comes after it. Many people ask a dog to be calm, obedient, social, and well-behaved while the dog's body is still tense, unsure, afraid, or overloaded. They want the dog to sit nicely, greet politely, tolerate the situation, stop reacting, or push through the moment as if the body were already ready. But a body that does not feel safe is not in its best state for learning. It is not in its best state for cooperation either. When a dog is frightened, overstimulated, conflicted, or overwhelmed, the problem is not simply that they are refusing to behave. Very often, the deeper problem is that their system is too busy protecting itself to take in what you are asking. In that state, pressure usually does not create clarity. It creates more strain. That is why this rule matters so much. Your dog is not expecting you to remove every challenge from life. They are not asking for a world with no limits, no expectations, and no guidance. What they need is something more basic than that. They need enough safety before the demand, enough steadiness before the correction, enough support before the performance. Because when the body settles first, learning changes. A dog can think more clearly, notice more, stay present longer, recover faster. Try again without feeling like every mistake carries too much weight. But when you ask for behavior before the dog has enough emotional footing, even simple things can start to feel impossible. That is where so many misunderstandings begin. People see a dog who cannot cope and decide the dog needs more pressure. But often what the dog really needs is more help getting back under threshold before anything else is asked of them. That might mean more distance, a slower introduction, a calmer tone, a simpler ask, a pause before repeating the cue, a moment to breathe before the next demand arrives. Because the truth is, obedience built on insecurity is fragile. Cooperation built on safety is much stronger. So one of the unspoken rules many dogs seem to live by is this: help my body feel safe enough first, and I will have a much better chance of meeting you well after that. 6. When your dog looks to you in a moment of uncertainty, they need you to make the world feel clearer, not heavier. This may be the deepest rule of all, because underneath consistency, respect, early listening, emotional steadiness, and safety before pressure, there is one larger hope many dogs seem to carry through the relationship. When I am not sure what to do, let you be the place that helps things make sense. Dogs reach moments like that all the time. A new person enters the space. A strange sound appears. Another dog acts unpredictably. A routine changes. Something feels slightly off but not fully dangerous. And in those moments, many dogs do something very important. They look to you. Not always in a dramatic way. Sometimes it is just a pause, a glance, a hesitation before moving forward. A body that waits one extra second to read what your presence means. But inside that small moment is a very deep question. Is this safe enough? Should I relax? Should I move closer? Should I hold back? Can I trust what happens next? That is why your role matters so much when your dog feels uncertain. They do not need you to control every situation perfectly. They do not need you to erase every challenge from their life. What they need is the sense that turning toward you makes the world more readable, not more threatening. And that changes everything. If your dog looks at you and finds steadiness, they borrow steadiness. If they look at you and find pressure, confusion, anger, or fear, then uncertainty grows instead of shrinking. This is where all the earlier rules come together. Predictability matters because it helps your dog trust your pattern. Listening matters because it teaches them their signals change something. Respecting space matters because it teaches them they will not be trapped. Emotional steadiness matters because it keeps the room from becoming harder to read. Safety before demands matters because it protects their ability to think and stay open. All of that leads here, to the moment when your dog is unsure, looks to you, and silently asks what kind of guide you are going to be. That may be the deepest unspoken rule in the whole relationship. Not be perfect for me, not fix everything for me. Just do not become another thing I have to fear when I am already unsure. Because when a dog can look to you and feel the world become clearer, trust becomes more than affection, it becomes orientation. And once that happens, your presence does not just comfort your dog, it helps them know how to move through life. Your dog may never say those rules out loud, but they still live by them every single day, not because they want to control you, not because they expect perfection, but because those quiet rules are how their body and mind decide when they can trust, when they can exhale, and when the relationship they have with you truly feels safe. And maybe that is the part worth thinking about most. The things your dog needs from you are not mysterious. They are not complicated. They are often very simple. A little more clarity, a little more listening, a little more respect, a little more steadiness, a little more proof, repeated over time, that being close to you does not have to feel confusing, heavy, or unsafe. So the next time your dog grows tense, steps back, goes quiet, struggles to cooperate, or looks toward you in a moment of uncertainty, do not stop at asking what is wrong with my dog. Ask something deeper. Am I breaking one of the quiet rules they need in order to feel safe with me? Because once you start asking that honestly, the relationship changes. Not all at once. Not through one big gesture, but through the small daily moments your dog was always paying attention to.